Daf Yomi, Tractate Menachot, page 8b, top of the page with the words Ul Rabbi Chanina. Ul Rabbi Chanina Yisrael Lama Nimshach Ve'Eloheinu Asui Ele Limdidas Kemach Bilvad Ve'Kemach Ena Kadosh Belo Shemen Leminchas Choite. The Gemara Leminchas Choite. The Gemara asks, according to the opinion of Rabbi Chanina, for what purpose was the vessel that measured a tenth of an ephah anointed, making it possible for it to sanctify items placed inside it? This vessel was fashioned only for measuring flour, and according to Rabbi Chanina, the flour is not sanctified without oil. What then does this vessel sanctify? The Gemara answers, the vessel was anointed for the purpose of sanctifying the meal offering of a sinner, which contains neither oil nor frankincense. V'log lama nimshach lelog shemitzoyeh. The Gemara further asks, and for what purpose was the vessel that measured the log of oil anointed? After all, according to Rabbi Chanina, oil for a meal offering cannot be sanctified by itself. The Gemara explains, it was anointed for the purpose of sanctifying the log of oil of a leper, which is not brought as part of a meal offering. This oil is sanctified without flour or frankincense. V'yav Shmuel Sofer lahadra v'yitznan kle halach mikat shinas halach u'midos hayavesh mikat shinas hayavesh ve'en kle halach mikat shinas hayavesh ve'midos hayavesh mikat shinas halach. The Gemara notes, and Shmuel also holds in accordance with this statement of Rav, that a service vessel sanctifies the flour of a meal offering even without its oil, as we learned in the Mishnah, Zevachim 88a. The vessels used for liquids sanctify only the liquids, and the vessels that serve as dry measures sanctify only the dry goods. But the vessels used for liquids do not sanctify the dry goods, and the vessels that serve as dry measures do not sanctify the liquids. And Shmuel says, with regard to this Mishnah, they taught that vessels used for liquids do not sanctify dry goods. Only with regard to vessels used as measures, but bowls that are used for collecting and tossing the blood of offerings sanctify the dry goods as well. As it is stated with regard to the offerings of the princes brought during the inauguration of the tabernacle, both of them full of fine flour mixed with oil for meal offering, Numbers 7:13. Which indicates that the bowl sanctifies meal offerings which are dry. The Gemara continues its proof, and the Ravach of Difti said to Ravina with regard to this derivation of Shmuel, but the meal offering of the verse is also considered liquid as it is mingled with oil. How then can one derive it from the halach with regard to items that are entirely dry? Ravina said to the verse cited by Shmuel is necessary only to teach that the dry part of the meal offering, that is, the frankincense, which invariably does not come into contact with the oil, is sanctified by the bowls as well. The Gemara concludes its proof with regard to Shmuel's opinion. And if it enters your mind that Shmuel holds that a meal offering is not sanctified by a service vessel until all of its components are together in the vessel, then how can you find a case where the dried parts of a meal offering are by themselves? Is it not correct that when meal offerings are sanctified, all of them are liquids due to the oil that is mixed with them? Rather, conclude from here that Shmuel holds that this substance may be sanctified without that one. And if you wish, say instead in answer to the Vachonimni's question of meal offering you when it is mixed with oil is relative to blood, considered a dry item accordingly. One may derive from the verse that the bowls sanctify dry items. And just as a bowl sanctifies a meal offering that contains oil, as it is considered dry in comparison to blood, so too it sanctifies a meal offering that is entirely dry, meaning that it contains no oil as claimed by Rav. The Gemara discusses the matter itself. Rabbi Elazar says, a meal offering from which the priest removed a handful while inside the sanctuary is valid, despite the fact that the handful should be removed in the temple courtyard. The reason is that we find a similar case in the sanctuary with regard to the removal of the balls of frankincense from the table of the showbread. Just as the bowl permits the showbread for consumption, so too the handful permits the remainder of the meal offering for consumption. Rabbi Yirmiyah raised an objection to this opinion from a Braita. Whoa. Discussing the verse, and he shall bring it to Aaron's sons, the priests, and he shall remove from there his handful. Leviticus 2, verse 2. The verse indicates that the removal of the handful from a meal offering may be performed from the place where the feet of the non-priest may stand, meaning anywhere within the temple courtyard. The Braita continues, Ben Betera, who holds that a handful is not disqualified when removed with the left hand, says that the verse should be interpreted as follows. From where is it derived that if one removed a handful with his left hand, that he must return the handful to the vessel that contains the meal offering and again remove the handful with his right hand? The verse states, and he shall remove it from there. This indicates that the handful is removed from the place where he already removed it, meaning the handful is returned to the meal offering, and thereupon removed from the same meal offering, this time with his right hand. It is clear from the statement of the first Tana that the handful of meal offering may be removed only in the place where the feet of a non-priest may stand, but not in the sanctuary. Asper alach lo nizrecha ela shliach shir et kol hazara kula shelo tomar levola kadashim kadashim umincha kodshe kadashim ma'ola tiuna tzafon av mincha tiuna tzafon. Some say that Rabbi Yirmiyah raises the objection and he resolves it as well. And some say that Rabbi Yaakov said to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Chalifa, I will explain to you the resolution of his objection. The verse is necessary only to permit the entire temple courtyard for removing the handful there, not to prohibit the removal of a handful inside the sanctuary. The reason is that you should not say, since the burnt offering is an offering of the most sacred order, and the meal offering is likewise an offering of the most sacred order, then just as a burnt offering requires that its slaughter be performed in the northern part of the temple courtyard, so too a meal offering requires that the removal of its handful be in the northern part. The Gemara raises a difficulty with regard to the comparison. What is notable about a burnt offering? It is notable in that it is more sacred, as it is consumed in its entirety upon the altar. The Gemara responds, the same comparison may be drawn from a sin offering, which is also an offering of the most sacred order. and it is not sacrificed in its entirety upon the altar, and yet it must be slaughtered in the northern part of the temple courtyard. Gemara raises a difficulty with regard to this comparison as well. What is notable about a sin offering is notable in that the halachot of a sin offering are more stringent, as its sacrifice atones for those sins whose transgression causes one to be liable to receive kais. The Gemara responds, the comparison may be drawn from a guilt offering, as it too is an offering of the most sacred order. It is not sacrificed in its entirety upon the altar. It does not atone for such sins, and yet it must be slaughtered in the northern part of the temple courtyard. The Gemara rejects the suggestion as well. What is notable about a guilt offering is notable in that a guilt offering has a loftier status, as it is one of the types of offerings whose atonement is achieved through their blood, meaning it's an animal offering. The Gemara adds, once this claim has been accepted from all of them as well, meaning from burnt offering and sin offering, one cannot draw a comparison to a meal offering either, as they are all types of offerings whose atonement is achieved through their blood. Rather, the verse was necessary in order to permit the removal of the handful anywhere in the temple courtyard, because it might enter your mind to say that since it is written, it shall be presented to the priest, and he shall bring it to the altar, Leviticus 2 verse 8, and it states, and he shall remove from there his handful, Leviticus 2 verse 2, one could claim, just as the beginning of the meal offering is in the southwestern corner of the altar, so too the removal of the handful must also be performed in the southwestern corner. Therefore the verse teaches us that the removal of the handful may be performed anywhere in the temple courtyard, but this does not serve to exclude the sanctuary. The Gemara discusses the matter itself. It says peace offerings that were slaughtered in the sanctuary are valid, as it is stated, and slaughtered at the entrance of the tent of meeting, Leviticus 3:2, meaning in the courtyard. And it is logical that the halakha with regard to the minor area, meaning in the courtyard, should not be more stringent than the halakha with regards to the major one. The tent of meeting or the sanctuary may still be b'mteromer minayim hikivu goyim et azore shekohanim nichnosin lechal ve'ochim v'chadashim menachot. The Gemara raises an objection to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan from Ibraita. Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera said, from where is it derived that if Gentiles surrounded the temple courtyard and were firing projectiles inside to the point that it became impossible to remain in the courtyard on account of the threat, that the priests enter the sanctuary and partake of the offerings of the most sacred order and the remainders of the meal offerings while in the sanctuary? The verse states, and we will be continued. With